So let me start with a story in this discussion, right? September of 2021, I got a job, and that job was paying me around 4 lakhs per year as a undergrad. So then I thought, yeah, let's write an exam, do some interviews, etc. Okay, 3-4 months later, I got into this B school, and after that, I got into a job, and that was paying me 4 lakhs for 2 months. Nothing in my skill set had changed. I had just gotten to know how to speak, maybe write, I don't know, some maths, and that gave me what I was going to get in a year in 2 months. So, if the question is MBA relevant? Well, if you want to earn as a BCom grad, if you want to earn money, I think it is. Whether it is important or I'm not sure, but yeah, if you want to earn money, if you want to at a very young age, I think MBA is relevant. What do you guys think?
Yeah. I think at the core of it, apart from all the learning that takes place, MBA is a form of signaling. Say some 50 or 60 years ago, there was a lot of unique learning that we used to get. The learning is still there. The uniqueness has kind of, gone out of the picture because of the democratization of education that we see with MOOCs and video tutorials and basically the internet education boom where there are resources that are accessible to everyone. And when we say that it is structured learning, even that is available now online. There is a structure that has been laid out for you by some of the brightest minds in the world. So I think currently it is one very important aspect of it is that it is a signaling mechanism where if I undertake a very pricey degree and the effort to put in 1.5 years of 2 years of my life, prime of my life into it, with all the rigors and all the juggling that comes, right? So I'm basically signaling it to the various recruiters that I'm an individual who has that sort of bent, that sort of commitment, and I can sustain a certain level of enthusiasm for learning and career growth for 1.5 years and likely for the duration of my career. So I think that is an important aspect.
I really like how he aparted learning from MBA. Should I get happy about it or should I get sad about it? Right. But by the way, I have an even more interesting story.
Yeah.
So there was one person who, after working for a few years in corporate, so did his MBA, worked for corporate. Then one day decided that ab nahi ho raha mere se. So he decides I'll go and do a PhD. And then he starts appearing for various interviews like Calcutta, XLRI, and all these places. Gets rejected at Calcutta, gets rejected at XLRI. Finally, somehow, by God's grace, makes it to IIM Ahmedabad. And then comes back to XLRI as your professor. Which is me. Okay. So the thing is that I believe, while I agree that a lot of democratization has taken place, and to some extent we are also to fault, that somehow we were not able to keep up with what YouTube and Netflix did in between, right? Too much of our focus is taken away by certain other aspects, rankings and all these things. So every time you pursue these goals, you will lose out on the innovative skill set in terms of like the faculty also has certain mandates in their life. Like you have to do this much research, these many classes, so on and so forth. However, what stops in between is pedagogical experimentation. If you look at it, up in 60s, the case study method was created in Harvard. After that, क्या नया आया है? Hardly anything, right? I mean, it is old, right? And people, frankly, have lost the kind of attention spans that they had. They wanted to be more visually engaging. So we needed, or we should rather, even now it's not too late, but we need to adapt to it, right? You require a lot of visual imagery and all. So from a more structural perspective, ideally a B school should have a setup for a video production unit, right? If you don't have it, if you don't have personalization to that extent, sooner or later these questions are going to become much more common, right? The other part of it, if I read all these things, and frankly, what do you learn in an MBA? I mean, it's not that what I am teaching is not available on Coursera and all. One is somehow still when you have a person in front of you and they talk to you, and then they tell you a narration, there is a sort of authenticity and sincerity in it. And you can judge intentions of the person, right? That this professor, okay, probably has some intention of teaching us and telling us something, right?
Yeah.
So one is you come for the intention. The second thing which I believe is more critical is you come for perspective, right? अब मैं अकेला perspective नहीं बना सकता, but class में when you have 60 people and you are talking to them continuously, if you know some of you are going to pass out, so look at the last 2 years. Most of the learning was actually informal in nature, not the one which was formally conveyed through grades and all. And in fact, if you look at your the returns in life in terms of social capital, tomorrow you might be an HR at one company, you might be an CHRO at another company, and that social capital is going to work and pay you back for a very long time, which I believe no amount of YouTube can give, no amount of Netflix can give, but a B school still can give. Right.
Absolutely.
I agree to that. And adding to the whole factor of when you say that a person's intention, there's a lot of credibility that is also attached to it. So when you're going to Coursera, you don't really know the professor, you don't really get to interact in an informal setting. But in a B school, you see the professors, you know the research because they do talk about the PhDs, where they have done it from, what they have done, and how do they go about it. So there's a lot of informal teaching that also happens, not also just between the professor and the student, but also amongst all of us. And the second thing, when you are saying that signaling, so I do think when MBA is or still holds relevance is the fact that you are signaling to the world that you have made it. When you do it from, let's say, top 20 B schools of the country or from the nation, it just shows that you have toppled over the 99th percentile of the people who were giving that examination, that interview slot, and you have actually made it. So that holds a lot of relevance, not in terms of just the society as a whole, but recruiters also. They see you from a whole new perspective. So again, as he said, that he was earning 4 lakh in a year and 4 lakh in 2 months, that actually truly shows that your potential moving forward, it truly transforms you.
One thing which I'd like to say, so interestingly, I was having this same discussion with my brother, and he is, for context, he's a master's in financial engineering from Berkeley, right? And I was having this discussion, and I told him, कि यार, it does not matter. I had that opinion कि MBA आजकल के time पे does not matter that much, and he was like, ऐसा नहीं है, because there were some group discussions in which they were there, MFE people were there, and there were some MBAs from Haas School of Business as well, right? And then he talked कि the technical part, us the technicians, we were just focused on the product that was being built. We were just thought that product has to be the best. सबको वो अच्छा लगना चाहिए. It was the MBAs who said कि ठीक है, product तो ठीक है, but how will you actually market it? What is the problem that it's solving? So going back to sir what you said, a couple of days back, PNM Mall, we had gone to PNM Mall to buy some tickets, right, to a movie, and there was a pricing. So like, smaller popcorn is 110, medium is 120, larger is 130. That does not make sense. But if you see it psychologically, it makes sense because you'd like to take a higher thing, right? If you weren't in an MBA, if I weren't in an MBA, I would not have noticed these things. So I think it is those discussions informally which we have, because to be honest, I think I've talked to you in class as well. I do not pay a lot of notice in class because मेरे को लगता है क्या ही मतलब है.
Thank you.
नहीं, but it's actually those discussion which we have outside class with you, with students, etc., right? Which are actually what sets it apart from other people.
So absolutely, this is a very strange phenomenon which happens. Okay. So once I enter the class and I'll ask few people, okay, like, what do you think about your life?
Yeah.
Everybody's like, okay. And then, suppose I give them a 5 or 10 minute break in between, assuming that they come back after. Okay. उसके बाद सब घेरा बना के खड़े हुए. Sir, I think this is what I should do. I am very confused. So you understand, like sometimes I believe that we should like take a hammer and break all these things, all these desk setups, because it it in a way mentally constrains people, to talk. A lot of faculty does have this issue, that people do not talk in the class. I personally am somehow able to get you to talk something. Okay. But I believe, even this kind of setup, we require some change definitely in terms of how programs are designed, how classes are taken. See, I don't think even if I tell people that attendance is completely voluntary, I still believe 60% of the class will turn up.
Yeah.
Right? They will still turn up. In fact, they might just turn up in a much more motivated and engaged fashion.
Right.
Plus, it is also wrong on our part to assume that, see, if there are 100 people in the world, you cannot go on pleasing everyone. There are always going to be those 5 or 7 who are just not interested in your subject. Okay, they might be interested in something else, but it is also possible that out of the 90 or 50 or so people who are interested, 10 of them would not be interested in another subject. So we don't really have a provision for the flexibility right now, right? We're too attendance centric. Thankfully we do not have biometric systems, and I'm really happy for that, because that is the only reason why I know the name of at least a few students.
Right.
Because I have taught at other institutions, IIMs, and because of the biometric system, even after a year, I would not know who was the person sitting in front of me. Like, only if the nameplate was there, I would remember them. Otherwise, I would not remember them. Right? But when I came here and I saw that that system was not there, I actually developed an appreciation for that. Right. But the problem is, what if tomorrow regulators ask us, no, we want to have an audit, so you have to have a biometric system. They don't understand these nuances. Very subtle. So this is what we call as academic culture. Culture kahan se aata hai? Yahi sab cheezon se aata hai.
Absolutely.
Another factor I feel here is that the approach of recruiters in the industry to MBA is, rather than seeing MBA students as innovators or pioneers of change, they have more of commodified it. Sort of the thing that the recruitment is like recruiting workers. So even middle managers are being treated as like commodities, and there's where you get the generic checklisting format. That I want an assurance that each student knows the basics of every field and has ticked off each of those checkboxes. And that's why, from what Sir said, our individual interests are not very much taken into account, and that's why the flexibility is not there. So it's an entire ecosystem where the very purpose of MBA essentially becomes that it is the sort of B school's job to filter it, and the recruiter can save recruitment costs by coming to one place, centralizing the process, saving a lot of hiring costs, and just hiring people from there because they're assured that all the basics are done.
See, Pitamber, I have another perspective on it, right? So, very few students gain that kind of clarity in the 2 years. And you had been in your internship, you must have spoken to people, and then you said, okay, like this fits me, this does not fit me, I'm this kind of a person, right? But I've seen that almost 70% students don't really gain any clarity, even after an MBA or even before coming to an MBA, right? It's like they are trying to escape something. And frankly, I don't blame them because I did the same thing, right? I was trying to escape my engineering degree by joining an MBA. Then I joined an organization. I was trying to escape the organization by joining a PhD. Okay. Thankfully, that journey has ended now. Somehow, we are right now a bit too focused on the academic and the rigor part of it. We might need to do more in terms of the mentorship part of it, because see, having a mentorship program where you go and meet a faculty like once in 6 months is not really going to cut it, right? So the clarity part is somewhere where I feel it is missing. Secondly, with respect to recruiters also, students also have many presumptions, right? Even if I can see that a student is very innovative, okay, has really good creative ideas, I can tell them, go to this company, like this is the company for you, but might be just a startup or a stable startup. They are under so much pressure looking at each other, Accenture strategy, McKinsey, BCG, Bain Capital. So they'll themselves harakiri their own passion, temporarily saying that wo to main kabhi bhi ja sakta hu, aaj bhi aata hu. But they don't realize that once you get into this, it might take a completely different turn altogether, right? And then you will complain like 10 years down the line that we are trapped in this rat race and so on and so forth. Secondly, even look at CTCs. It hardly matters in the long run. Like, I was never like the best student in my class. Never. I was always that 80%, 75, 80%, that kind of a student, right? Today I'm much better off than most of the people who were toppers or all these things, right? The problem is we see at a B school like XLRI, we can only check for a few things, and that is what we are labeling intelligence. There are 100 different things that constitute intelligence in you, right? We are commenting on only those 4 or 5 things: quest for excellence, leadership drive, blah blah blah. Okay, that does not mean that grade starts defining who you are, right?
Right.
I also believe that recruiters should be more considerate and not really look at grades as the only thing.
Right.
It is, in my experience, it's a very poor reflection of performance. Not just this, there are tons of studies done. Which grades have really no correlation with life success, right? And rather than focusing, we are focusing too much of success. What about the significance? Significance is the first question that students do not know. मैं क्यों कर रहा हूँ MBA?
Right.
How can, I mean, like, just think about it. How can you say, I want a job at XYZ consultancy? I mean, it's such a pity if you say that, right? So you have to be much more clear on it. Right?
I'd like to add a story here when we were talking about the perspective MBA brings in. So, just a small story. When I was prepping for my GDPIs, I got calls and I was in rooms with people I did not know. We were just all getting in together and just prepping for GDs. I just saw that people who were preparing for MBA examinations for 2-3 years, just preparing for an MBA examination brings so much of perspective in it that we were so restricted. We were like the first generation. We just prepped 1 year. We had 1 month for preparation. We had very restrictive. Ki this is what the interviews would like to hear. But the people who had been preparing for it and people who were mentoring us, they had like diverse perspectives. So it's just not MBA that is so relevant, but also the whole process from starting of your CAT and ZAT or any B school MBA entrance exam preparation to the whole process. It just brings so much more perspective and it's very wholesome to go about it that way.